When was the first time you met up with Greg Ginn and got connected with Black Flag?
Well, I used to live behind on Elena, North Elena, in Redondo Beach, and it was right behind the power plant. And my dad used to have these yard sales. I had a big front yard, and he would have these garage sales on the weekends. And he'd be playing all this jazz, and I'd be taking all this stuff from out of the garage and putting it out on the front lawn, put signs on them like $2, $5 for this chair or whatever. And when he'd leave to go down to the beach, I loved the jazz music, but then I'd whip out like my X-Ray Specs album or something, and I'd put that on, or I'd put on like some Bowie, or I'd put on some rock and roll or something, you know. So one day I'm doing this yard sale for my dad, he leaves, and this Puerto Rican kid walks by, and he had a white Levi jacket with all these punk rock band names that I knew, I was familiar with, and it said Ramones and Eater and X and the Germs and all this stuff. And he goes, "You like this type of music?" I was playing some punk rock record, I don't remember which one. I go, "Yeah, well, you know, yeah, I'm playing it, I like it." So we became friends, and his name was Ron Reyes. Ron Reyes eventually became the singer of Black Flag before me, but he wasn't the first singer, he was the second singer. But we were neighbors. He lived right down the street, and he goes, "I heard of this band called Panic, but I think they're changing their name to Black Flag." And they rehearse at this place that used to be a church, but now it's an arts and crafts center down in Hermosa Beach. Let's go hang out and go to the rehearsal, and tomorrow, which was a Sunday, the garage sale was on the Saturday. So we met up. He lived 3 houses down. We happened to like the same music. We went down there. We met all the guys from Black Flag. And that was literally before they ever played their first gig, before the Moose Lodge. So that's how I met them. I met them because I was having a garage sale, and some other punker walked by, and we became friends, and we walked down to where they rehearsed, which was like a half a mile away. That's how we met them.
When was your first gig with Black Flag?
My first gig was at the same church you're talking about. I was talking about, where they had their office and they rehearsed there. The guy Ron, who I mentioned earlier, had quit the band, and they didn't have a singer for like 6 months, and I had been friends with them. And I went down to the church one day, and I said, I saw Chuck Dukowski, the bass player, and he goes, "Dez, I want to ask you a question. You want to try singing some of our songs? You know we need a singer. We've been trying different people. It hasn't worked out. Do you want to try?" I go, I play guitar. I don't sing. I've never sang before. I go, "Why would you want me to sing? I don't sing." He goes, "Because we see you singing the songs at our gigs all the time." I used to know all the words. I'd sing along while I was knocking people over and pogo and doing all that early punk rock shit, you know. And he goes, "Well, you're friends of ours. You're a cool person. First of all, you're cool." That's what he said. Second of all, we think you know the lyrics. You want to try to sing? Let's hear what it sounds like. So I go in there, right then. And what songs do you know? "Well, we'll play this one, I'll try to sing it. Play this one, I'll try to sing it." I must have did about 8 songs, and then he goes, then they all look at each other and they go, "Okay, you ready to go to Vancouver with us next week? We're going to San Francisco, San Jose, Santa Cruz, Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver. Are you ready?" I'm like, "I just came down here to hang out and drink some beers. What do you mean? I'm in the band? Now I'm the singer?" Then he asked me if I could sing and play guitar at the same time. And at that time, I didn't know how to, so I just had to just try to sing. And that's how I joined Black Flag.
How has the punk scene changed here in 2013, comparable to the late 70s and mid to
Well,
80s?
that's always a hard question because it's big. It's everywhere. It's not just nationwide. It's worldwide. And you got to remember, 30 odd years ago, people in Russia were bootlegging Beatle records just so they can have, and it would probably say something in Russian on there that didn't say the Beatles on the label. But the people, and sneaking record players into the country, and Czechoslovakia too. You know, there's people smuggling Rolling Stones, Frank Zappa and Led Zeppelin records into the country so they could listen to it, and they're really low in their apartments. It was against their law to own these things. So the punk rock scene, I mean, it's gone through generations. We're talking about how many generations now? 30 years, golly. That's 3 generations? 4? What's a generation? 10 years?
20.
10 years, right? 20 years? Okay, a couple generations. I know, I play in the Misfits. I got people who are my age now bringing their grown kids who are in their 20s, who are bringing their little kids who are like 5 or 6 years old to our all ages shows to see the Misfits. So there you go. There's 1, 2, 3. You know, it's something that is just grown worldwide. How has it changed? I mean, I mean, musically, it's good to search out new music, and when you actually find something that's unique, that's a great thing. Sometimes, you know, when you end up traveling in a band, and you're in a touring band, and you're going around the country. I remember when I first started in Black Flag. I don't know how many bands were named Toxic Shock. We would go to Texas and we'd play with some band and they were called Toxic Shock. We'd go to Oklahoma and there's a completely different band and they were called Toxic Shock and sounded like the other Toxic Shock. Yeah, so it's like the popularity of the music has spread worldwide.
When was the first time you visited Japan?
"10 years ago. 03. And it was on tour with a band called Balzac. And we actually had Marky Ramone playing drums with the Misfits. 10 years ago. Then I think we went again, maybe 2 or 3 years later. And we haven't been there in a long time, so I think we have plans to go next year, which is good. We've since then we've had an album come out, and we're going to have more singles come out, and we're going to have more releases. And we've actually had 2 albums come out. We had a studio and a live one, so maybe it's about time we go to Japan. That's the Misfits.
What kind of food did you eat when you were in Japan?
It was really funny. Well, several things were pretty funny about Japan. I forget what hotel it was at, but I was up on like the 40-something floor, right in the middle of Tokyo. And I remember they took us out for Japanese food and sushi and everything. And it was with the band Balzac, and we had just got off this 15-hour flight or whatever. Perfect time for a phone call. Sorry, guys, you can wait. And we were all, I was a mess from the flight. I wasn't, drunk or anything until we met the Japanese people that wanted to take us out to eat. And they took us out to eat. It was like every 5 minutes, "Kompai! Kompai!" Hey, look, I like my rice wine, but by the barrel. No, the sake's dripping down the pants, So we go, they take us out, and of course the first thing they take us out to have is sushi. But the next night, we asked them, take us to your favorite place. And was this the best restaurant? Take us to the best place, your favorite place. They said, okay. And what did they take us? Korean barbecue. That was, and I must admit, it was really amazing. But that was their favorite place. I go, okay, we figured they were just going to take us to a bigger and better sushi or a Japanese restaurant. No, they took us to a Korean barbecue in Tokyo. And that was really good. It was really good.
What would be the Black Flag's beer of choice?
Well, Eddie.
Import or domestic?
But the song Six Pack was written, and I can say this because, everybody knows this anyway. It was written about Keith. And his beer of choice when he drank years ago was Budweiser. Now, if you're going to ask me what my particular beer of choice is in the whole universe, in the whole world, I will say original Budvar from Czechoslovakia, which is Budweiser, but it doesn't have anything to do with the Budweiser Anheuser-Busch that we have here in America. That's my beer of choice. If I was to say, oh well, if there's any beer in the world that I'd like to have right now, it would be Budvar from Czechoslovakia. You're probably familiar with that.
Yeah. What's your favorite guitar of choice, or the guitar that you always take on tour with you?
Well, I have a bunch of really good guitars, and I like them all. I don't want to sound like a politician, but I play Gibsons. I have a bunch of different ones. I have a V. I have a Les Paul with P90s, a flat body double cutaway. I've got also, what else did I have? An SG. I got a gold top Les Paul. I got a black Les Paul special. Not a Les Paul special, standard. I've got a Fender Strat, Fender Telecaster. I just like guitars. And I like guitars with different sounds. And if I need a guitar with a specific sound, I like to have, oh, okay, well, there's my Telecaster. Because this is what should, the sound I need for this, or whatever I'm doing. And I have a bunch of Schecters. I play a lot of the Schecters, mostly the Schecters with the Misfits, although I have a black Les Paul standard that I've been playing for about 10 years with the Misfits. But I have a selection, and I'd like to have a big selection of them. Now, I've had people say to me, well, you play the Flying V the best. And I've heard have people say to me, "You play your Stratocaster the best." So I don't know. I don't, you know. I mean, I try to. I just like.
What is your favorite country to perform in?
My favorite country. I think at this stage of the game, I'm not that biased to most any country. I mean, just as so long. I find that people, in a lot of ways, are very similar around the world. It's just that maybe some of their habits are different. So if I'm playing in I could go to Texas and have a great show. I could go to Milan, Italy and have a great show. Now, you look at Texas and you look at the Italians, it's a completely different animal. But when it really comes down to it, the music affects them the same way. And if you were cut to one of them, they would bleed the same way. So, you know, I really, you know, it's really cool to go to places like I said, Italy or South America or you know, go to foreign countries. But like I said, I could just as well have be happy playing somewhere in Texas and Estonia, if they'll let me play in Estonia. Or if is it even called Estonia anymore?
Yeah.
Is it still Estonia?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I lost track. A lot of countries, you got Czech Republic, then you got the Slav. You know, it used to be just all Czechoslovakia, so I get confused.
You are famous for the Police Story song and Black Flag. Do you have any police stories you would like to share?
Well, I mean, nothing that extreme. I remember getting arrested for going to Huntington Beach Pier, and Black Flag used to put up flyers, but when we used to put up flyers on the posts, we used like wallpaper paste, so these things would stay on the wall like forever. We didn't sit there and staple them. We did that. But I remember going to, we did that also, but people would just rip them down. Fans would rip them down, or people didn't like us would rip them down. So to promote our shows, we would get real, like mix up like plaster of Paris paste. And one guy would have a bucket, and the other guy would hold the poster up, and we paste it on the wall or paste it on the side of. I remember one time we went to the Huntington High School on a Saturday, and we didn't get arrested for this, but we went to one where the lockers are, where all the kids' lockers were, and we hit one wing of Huntington High School, like just about every locker, on a Saturday. The doors were open. Let's try the doors. We figured we'd put some on the outside of the high school and get some advertisement, get people from Huntington Beach. No, we hit every locker in one of the wings. Did not get arrested for that, but one time down at the Huntington Beach Pier, me and Robo got arrested for that. And we're all covered with plaster of Paris. They got this bucket full of plaster of Paris as evidence, flyers. I think we spent, like, in the morning we were out. But police stories, I mean, I remember seeing some really vicious stuff in the early 80s when punk bands would put on their own gigs. They'd rent a hall. Right about 1980, this thing, punk rock, nobody knew what it was. So there was an actual thing on TV called Parents of Punkers, and it was a bunch of parents getting together. They were saying, "My children are doing this, and this is like a curse to our society, and Oh, and they're fornicating. All these kids are fornicating in the bushes and drinking and doing drugs, and this is such a bad thing. And so the police got wind of that, and they would actually come to gigs in riot gear. And there was a couple of famous. One was called the Elks Lodge riot. That was in 1979. That was the first one. Didn't include Black Flag. That was like the earlier punk rock bands like the Germs. But then Black Flag used to do their own gigs, and we had helicopters, whole police forces in riot gear showing up at our gigs and starting to beating up kids. So I mean, as far as myself, I was lucky enough not to get hurt in any of that. But there was many in like 1980, 1981, there was many like interruption of these punk rock gigs by the police. And but as far as I was concerned, I only got arrested for putting posters on the wall. But it really worked. You would see our posters up there for 5 years. 5 years later, it would still be up there. And we were like pretty bad about it. I guess that's actually causing real vandalism. And then going onto a school grounds and putting it on kids' lockers. Boy, that's taking a risk. But my favorite police story now is when I get New York cops coming up to me at a show in New York, and they're fans, and they'll come up to me and go, "Will you sign my magazine?" Like for the gun, and so I'm like, when I'm signing this magazine, when you use this gun next time, you're going to be thinking of me, or what's the story? So that's the type of police story I like talking about. Now I get the cops handing me their badges and PBA cards, because they like the band. I played in Santa Ana at the observatory. I turn around. This is 2 weeks ago. I'm playing in the Misfits. I got all the garb on, right? I got all my makeup on. I turn around. There's a cop standing right there, right next to my amplifier. Looks at me like this. I'm like, okay. After the show, my friend Pete from the Attic says, "I want to introduce you to the constable here." I go, "You mean the guy, the cop?" Ask him to show him his bulletproof vest. Ask to see his bulletproof vest. Okay, so he takes me over there. He goes, so he introduces me to the cop. Probably in town working today. He's from Santa Ana. Right? This is Santa Ana. Opens up his bulletproof vest, and it's a big Misfits skull right there. Those are the police stories I like to tell nowadays. We don't want to have any more riots. The riot days are over.
What are your favorite punk bands from the 70s, from LA?
LA? Well, the Germs, I say, and remember, I consider Black Flag a punk rock band from the 70s because that's when they started and that's when I first saw them. So I will say Black Flag, the first Black Flag that I saw. I was a fan before I was a member. There was the Germs, there was the Controller. Now, I'm going to name some LA ones, but then I'll name some English ones. The Controllers, I like the Dickies, the Eyes. These are all LA bands. X, the Gears, the Simple Tones, the Chiefs. These are all LA bands. The Screamers, the Weirdos. Okay, I'll stop with the LA. And I really like the X-Ray Specs from England. I like Eater. I like the Sex Pistols. I like the the Ramones, of course. And then there was all those other bands that came out of the New York scene that I wouldn't totally call them punk, but they came from like Television. Richard Hell and the Voidoids. Dead Boys. Then there's weird bands like some weird bands like Perry Ubu, stuff like that. Trying to think. English bands. Did I say Eater? Yeah, I like the first wave of English bands, of punk rock bands, a lot, you know. It was the first Susie and the Banshees record and First Class record. Then there was other bands like The Jam, who were like mods, but they were really good, you know. So I like that early stuff. We're tracking, what were we talking about?
The vaporizer.
The vaporizer, oh. So we finish up, and I'm hungry, I'm starving. Let's go get Mexican food. We go to the Mexican food place in North Hollywood that's supposed to be the best, and it was really good.
Was it Ernie's?
Great guacamole. It was the best. It was my idea. But before we leave the studio, this guy says to me, "Oh, I got the vaporizer." And we had drinks. So you don't drink or smoke weed, but when you drink and then smoke weed, sometimes you feel like you might spin.
You never did that, right?
He did. And the vaporizer doesn't clue you as to when you're going to spin. So when you take a hit off the vaporizer, you're sitting there, and I took a couple of good ones, and I walk out to the car, and these guys are waiting for me, Gene and CJ, and I go, "Guys," and it was my idea, "Let's go to the Mexican restaurant." I go, "I don't know if I could go in the restaurant. I don't know if I'm gonna puke or if I'm just gonna whatever." And they're like, "You'll be fine, you'll be fine." We go to the restaurant. I go, "Okay, should I go in?" And they're like, "Yeah, come on." So we go in. The waitress gives me a tall glass of water. I drink it, I sit there. I order first. Everybody orders. They get their food first. I'm still waiting there, and I'm like, drinking my water, feeling better. I get my food. I finish my food before everybody else
You
did.
fucking inhaled it.
I was like, by that time I had the munchies. But originally I didn't want to walk in the restaurant because I was like paranoid because
He was so fucking high, dude.
I was like, "Guys, I don't know if I want to get out of the car."
Because when you smoke out of the vaporizer, you know, usually if you smoke a joint or smoke out of glass, like the
Pipe or
plant,
anything.
yeah, the plant or the fucking paper starts to burn the back of your throat, and it kind of makes you stop taking the hit. But when you smoke on the vaporizer, there's nothing to make you stop taking a hit until your lungs are ready
You
to
get
pop,
a
'cause you
clear
fucking inhaled
hit
so
of
much.
the drug.
And he fucking was like, so fucking high, dude. He was like, "I don't know if I can do this." Well,
Can we go home to Long Beach?
I fell asleep in the car on the way back.
Yeah, but I was up after I ate all that food. I was like, and then when I woke up in the morning, I was like, which was 5 o'clock in the morning because we're on the East Coast time. I was like, I'm not that hungover, and my belly is really full.
Still went down and had breakfast though. Right?
Yeah, but at 10 o'clock,
Right.
it took me a while.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was fun though, right? You had a good time?
I've been having a good time ever since I've seen you.
Of course. You can't not have a good time when you're with me.
Unless you're sleeping.
Okay,
Is that a rule?
That's a rule.